Welcome back to Shelview Boots. I'm Katie, the face behind Shelview Boots, and bloody hell, the RAF are here this week. We have Lisa. I think you're actually my first RAF person, I think, if I remember rightly. Yeah,
Ooh,
first one.
here's to many more.
But yes, Lisa, you're known through especially the sporting circles within the military, or what was the military, and that's how I know you from old. But for those of you who don't know, do a little intro of yourself.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I'm Lisa Kelly-Tonge. I left the Air Force in 2020, but originally joined in 2003 as a in the medical services, and then I transferred across to the personnel world. So I was in there, and then I set up my own business when I realised that I was actually going to leave the service. But I know you through RAF cricket, Armed Forces cricket. Yeah, so we played against each other then. So yeah,
Every year.
that's me.
Yeah.
I can say lots of other stuff if you'd like.
Yeah, fierce rivalry. Fierce. I mean, you even went to Australia. How fabulous. The good old days.
Yes, the inaugural
Yeah,
tournament, which
yeah.
sadly has not
Not happened
happened
since.
again, but
Yeah,
there we are.
no. That was brilliant. Probably one of the highlights for me. But yeah, I mean, in terms of so did you? Because I've seen a lot of the posts with your business and stuff. Did you start that before you left? Did you start laying the groundwork for that, or was it a bit of you were pretty much one foot out the door?
Do you know what? It's kind of morphed into it throughout. Even before I joined the services, I love property. I've always got a passion for property, what it means, the stories behind them, and all that. And it when I had the feeling of something needs to change in my life, that's when I thought, what else can I do? And I kind of realised the power of property, and I thought, well, how can I tie it up with being in the military? I mean, most people that know me would have said, if you cut you in half, there'd be a roundel. So I never expected to be leaving, but circumstances change. So I set it up probably the year of my last 12 months in
Yeah,
service. Yeah, with the intention of setting it up for a purpose,
yeah,
really.
yeah. And how did you find that kind of? Because that's one hell of a step, isn't it? Because I don't think you did any kind of work other than that. You literally left, and it was the business. That's a leap of faith at
Yeah.
that point into something that's very new and very different.
Do you know what, though? One of my biggest things was I was a physio before I
Yeah,
joined up. So already took a huge leap to join the
yeah,
military because I took a massive pay cut to join. So the risk was already there. And I thought to myself, you know what, Lise, you've already done loads of challenges anyway. The military sets you up for challenges. And I just thought the timing is right. Now I need to find something that's going to suit me and I'm going to enjoy doing and everything like that. So I decided to see where that was going to take me. It didn't help that it was COVID when I left. So that set up a whole different challenge. Because I'm going to be very unique to a lot of people that leave the service, because all of us that left during COVID will, of course, had different feelings. I mean, I didn't get the feeling of leaving my unit and looking back and going, that's the last time I'll see it, because I couldn't go back to my unit. I couldn't have the corner of my ID card cut off. I couldn't, I didn't experience all those feelings that other people had. I still couldn't go anywhere that I wanted to. I missed people's birthdays, weddings, births, all that kind of stuff, things that you do lose out on when you're in service. And I couldn't see friends, family. So you kind of felt like you were in the service
yeah.
anyway. So it was weird. It was really weird. I had no medical, dental, none of that. I had the weird feeling of setting up a business when you can't get out and do
Yeah,
it. Was a fair few weeks of worry, I'm not going to lie.
yeah. Especially as well, like you say, it wasn't even that real kind of sense of that therapy word of closure of I've actually left. Did you? I think when I speak to a lot of people who especially have been medically discharged, because that's almost like a backdoor leaving as well, that they feel there's still a weird kind of loyalty because it just feels like you've not actually left. Like you're almost still going to get a phone call at some point, even though it's not going to happen. But it's still there. As you've not quite come to terms with the fact that it's finished because you've not gone through, like you say, those processes that you expected that help sort of shut
Yeah.
down that part of your brain that says, you know what, I have left.
Yeah. I guess the only thing for me was because I set up the business with the intention of supporting military families. I kind of already knew that there was going to be a connection anyway, but I expected it to. I don't really know what I expected, but talking to other people who have left under different circumstances, I don't have the same feelings that they do. Like you say, there wasn't a closure to it, but I didn't know if I expected a closure. I don't know. I couldn't have a top table. I couldn't have, see my friends before we actually left and, wave goodbye and things. I had a leaving do when I left to go on resettlement and stuff, and that was great. But it was, your wider friends, your wider people that like yourself, that you'd, spent a lot of your military career with, was missing out on that. But yeah, so it was a weird one. I had an intention to do something. Couldn't do it for a while, but I think that's where the military's good at teaching you how to pivot quickly and change direction.
Yeah.
Because so often you're told within a short space of time you're posted or you're deployed or you're moving or something's changing. There's always change going on, so you're always kind of experienced in that, I suppose. Yeah, it was strange, very strange, but for everybody, obviously. For
Yeah,
everybody.
I think the way because I left, my last day was like the 18th of March 2020, and we got locked in what, the 23rd, 28th, and I likened it to, and I have said to a lot of people, and I might have said on this podcast before, but it felt very similar to the end of Finding Nemo, where they're in the little plastic bags in the sea, like, I'm
Yeah,
free. Now what? I'm still not free.
yeah,
There's still another challenge on top of it, and I think for me as well, and like you just said, it's like you've not actually left because you're still confined and contained within those restrictions of COVID. And I think for me that delayed, I think, a lot of my mentality as well of leaving, because you're just still locked in that kind of mental box of, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't go. I'm still missing out on friends and family and weddings and kids and births and parties and stuff. So for me, I think there was a lot of, very much a year to 18 months of still lost time that I had no control over, or I couldn't do anything about it. But it was felt very reminiscent of still being in and missing out on all that.
yeah,
I think for me was probably one of the hardest things. But I think you're right. We're very good at pivoting and changing and adapting. And I think for me, especially coming on the outside and seeing how, like, the normal side of the equation work, with a lot of the planning and the prepping and the planning and the prepping, that we're very, very good at planning on very little information, very
yeah,
little direction, and very good at going, you know what, that's my decision and it's probably not going to work, but that's fine. Figure it out. Have you found that now running your own business, that kind of mentality is
yeah.
kicking
No,
in a bit more?
yeah, no, totally. It's spoken to loads of people that have left the service and things like that, and it's amazing how many people feel that when they leave, the thing that they do when they leave has to be the right thing to leave. So you always kind of have this expectation: what I leave and go and do has to be a success, and it has to work. And yet people don't define what success is. But you've got to remember that, when you were in service, you were probably changing jobs every 2, 3, potentially 5 years, so you've got to be used to that change in role. So don't be disappointed when the first job you could do when you come out doesn't work the way you plan it to. And I know a lot of people that suddenly go, well, I wish I was back in service now because this isn't working. Instead of going, this isn't working, right, let's go and do something else. So take what I've learned and go and try another challenge. Let's go and do something else. I joke actually at the moment about running my own business, because I used to laugh at people that Like if I was doing a job and I had a gapped post, you'd be like, oh, I'm wearing two hats this week because this post is gapped. And that happens a lot. And you're like, oh, I've got, two hats to do. I used to think, crikey, that's, a real difficult thing to do. But when you're running your own business, you've probably got about 60, 70 hats. And there's hats that you don't even know you should be wearing. So the challenges of all that is just unbelievable. You've just got to keep moving and finding out which hat you're meant to be wearing today, or which 7 hats you're meant to be wearing today, and just know which hats you don't need to wear and which hats you should be wearing. And, that only comes from learning. I mean, I left the service to have a challenge, and I've definitely had that.
Yeah. What surprised you the most that you just didn't even sort of contemplate, in your own business after leaving, and then COVID and everything? What has surprised you the most?
I would probably say how lonely working in your own business can be if you don't have a team to work with. I think you realise how much you enjoy working with a team, as much as there's moments where you just want to be on your own and working for yourself. I think having a team, regardless of who it is, whether it's your partner, your kids, your friends, whatever, they're still part of that team. And I think it's making sure that, you see them as a team and that they're there to support you, bounce ideas off and things like that. But definitely, I think, again, COVID prevented a lot of networking anyway, and it was all online, which was difficult at times. And I think that's highlighted for me, is that I like to be interactive with people on a personal level. So that's what I missed the most. And I think it took me a while to just suddenly go, you know what, you actually do enjoy being. I mean, I've always wanted to work in a team, but being a business owner can be really, really lonely, even if you do have a team of people, because you're making decisions on your own. You don't have a boss to go and say, look, this is now on your shoulders. It is on your shoulders. And I think that's probably the thing that I underestimated the most, I think.
And it's funny you say that, because there's quite a few women I know, not necessarily veterans or anything like that, set up their own businesses through COVID. Was like, right, I'm going to just do it and take the leap. And, women that have set their own businesses up, and it's got to it's about the same time, about now, last year I was having a lot more conversations about it, where they had the same realization that they felt quite lonely and isolated because it was just them running the businesses, and a lot of the stuff that they're doing is almost pretty much online as well. And there's one friend in particular that she started to make an active choice now of going out and being part of like these women's in business groups, and doing sort of public speaking about what she does, and booking herself holidays to just go away, because at one point she just wasn't even going away. And I've seen very much a shift in certain sort of mentalities like that, like I say, with no military background whatsoever, but the thing they have in common is they're all business owners on their own, and they don't have a team, and they don't have that kind of network around them. And I think COVID probably masked that for quite some time. And then now the realization is kicking in that I'm kind of still living in that COVID mindset, instead of actually, well, there are women in business groups, and there are things I can go to, and events I can go to, and network. And it's getting out of that habit, I think, for a lot of people, I've found, especially in the last sort of year, that realization and the adventure that they want to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm solo parenting during the week, so even getting to networking events is actually quite tricky. And then, of course, weekends are family times. Having a balance between networking online during the day and physical events locally is pretty much where I can be at the moment. There's no. I will on occasion, if I plan it well in advance, is, have a meeting, I'll go to a conference or a networking event elsewhere, but, they are few and far between. But it's quite tricky when you're in a little town that's quite away from big cities, because the big cities are usually one that do all the networking events and things like that. But yeah, it's having that balance and pushing yourself out there. Networking is actually quite difficult to do in itself. As much as you like, I think I've discovered a lot about
Yeah.
myself. I'm quite introverted and I don't necessarily enjoy social circumstances as much as I might not. It may not come across that I don't like social circumstances. Situations, I'm actually very introverted, so it is actually quite difficult to get out to those things. But when I'm there, I'm generally, okay from that perspective. But it does take a lot of
Have you
effort.
found, like, going to sort of social event networking events that are now not necessarily all military people? Have you found that you're starting to having to sort of develop a new language set? I know I found talking to people that have never done the military, have no interest in it. I realised I had a whole like language conversation pack that was irrelevant now, and I had very little then to draw on to be able to have conversations with just normal people about normal things, and it was a very alien situation for me in those circumstances.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What I'm also finding now is that seeing new people in the military that are currently serving is trying to have the same conversations when they're talking a different language as well. So the language in the military has moved
Yeah,
on. You're still using old school language, and it's like, whoa, where? Well, that's what it was in old
yeah,
money. So what is it now? I don't
yeah,
know. So yeah, the language is very fascinating, isn't it? It's trying to use the right language in the right
yeah,
places.
yeah. And it's taken me, 6 years now. It's taken me a good, I think, probably 4.5, 5 years to start developing other social situations that I can now talk about without talking about sort of the military, especially meeting new people. But there was very much a lot of circumstance where I've been in a group of girls and I've been like, I've got nothing to add to this conversation because I have no idea what everyone's talking about. I've got no clue whatsoever. So for me, that felt very much like a fish out of water. And I think that's when sometimes people do get that, oh, I wish I was back in mentality, because it was a language people
Yeah,
understood and a friendship network that you could just tap into quite easily.
it's like having a tribe that you don't have to
Yeah,
work at. It's having, if you're with like-minded people and you have the same conversations, it's your tribe and you feel comfortable and you can just have that. But if you're around people that don't speak the same language, you don't feel you fit in, even though you do if you gave yourself a
yeah,
chance.
yeah. And I think that's the thing is, especially when you joined, you wouldn't have known the language. It was all new. Everything was new, and you managed to get through it and be part of that tribe. It's just day one, week one, all over again, somewhere else, learning the new language and the new tribe. And I think as well, when a lot of people reminisce about, oh, I wish I was back in, but like you say, it's moved on. So you could go back, and it could be completely different, and you won't recognise what it is now, even after leaving. And it might have not been long ago.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
scary.
very scary. So, your circumstance, like you say, you've got very, very young family, very, very young child. As you're leaving, your other half is still serving. So you've got that dynamic on top of it as well. And the,
Mm.
the moving, and, how have you found it being on this side of the equation in that relationship? Because obviously you were both in, so it was, you're in the same fence line, but now you're like the spouse of someone on the other side. Has that been a massive shift?
Massive. I think that's the one experience that I would love to go back into service having had that experience. Because I think being a military spouse, thankfully it's changed from a dependent, being a military spouse is so
Yeah,
unique and so complex that I don't think it's truly understood by those that are in
yeah,
the service as it is now. I fully understand all the experiences that I had because Lucy deployed for pretty much 6 months. So I experienced that being the person at home looking after the child. The service was great. They looked after us so well, and it was brilliant to see. But there was just certain things that I just kind of go, God, I wish I was back in the job that I did that would enable me to then look after people better because I fully understand you know, what it was like. It was one of those ones that you just kind of go, hang on, this person is now coming back, getting a medal and saying hip hip hooray, well done you've done amazing. Other halves left at home with the children, who was literally kept the house together, looked after the kids, dealt with all the challenges at home, and then you're told you need to look out for things that might go wrong with your other half, you know, and be aware of the things that they have to deal with, and be aware of the things that might make them a different person. And I just go, God, I don't ever remember being told how to necessarily think about your other half. We didn't have children then, but there wasn't any sort of here you are, spouse, you know, you basically you need the medal.
Yeah.
I definitely see military spouses in a completely different light because of all the stuff you have to handle in that time, whilst worrying at the same time about what's going on. And you get to speak to them a lot more than you used to, but it is one of those you kind of go, oh God, I wish I was back in because I could help with policy there, or do this a little bit more, or I'd change that, or you know, just be in a different situation. Because I think they're definitely the underspoken about military family side of it, because you know, without them, the service person is just yeah. Well,
They're quietly in the background, just taking all the crap, and you know, just getting on. And you're right. I mean, I joke all the time about Fish and Fee, saying the reason Fish has done so well in her career is because of Fee. she wouldn't have got where she's got to without Fee in the background, like just having things
holding it all together,
sorted, done, so she didn't have to worry about anything when she was at home. And every time I see them, and she's promoted again and again and again, I'm like, because of you, because she wouldn't have found half her kit when she needed it, or it wouldn't have been sorted for her, because yeah, she can be a nightmare. But I think, yeah, it's they unsung kind of just sit in the background and get on with it. And then there's another level then for when, because you'll come to that point as well with Lucy when she leaves, and then you've got to then look after and deal with that emotional change in her and be that support on the other side, which also isn't always recognised by, charities and things. There are certain ones now that will look at it as a whole thing, the children, the spouse, everything. But it is something that is also forgotten on the other side, is the difficulties of, their spouse potentially might be struggling badly coming out, and then the other half is having to try and figure out how to help in the best way they can without any information or guidance or literature, nothing. They're just, again, slowly and quietly taking the crap and trying to get that person through on the other side as well.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. There is enough for that aspect of it, for supporting the spouse, for them transitioning out, because it is all focused on the service person, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then of course we've got one menopausal woman, and a potential perimenopausal woman. That's a whole different kettle of
That
fish.
adds another layer.
Oh yeah, afternoon hot flush
Yeah.
kicking in right now.
Yeah, and also, like, mentally as well, the brain fog, the imposter syndrome, the anxiety, all this other stuff that is, you have anyway when you leave, but then it's made even worse by the menopause sort of side of it, which is why I'm looking into a lot and having conversations with a lot of kind of doctors and researchers, because a lot of people like yourself, they joined at that time, and then when they leave, they've hit that point. If you're going to do your full, you're probably going to be perimenopausal or menopausal when you leave, and having to deal with that on top of all the emotional kind of junk of leaving as well at the same time. And it can completely sort of discombobulate and make you feel really unstable when you come out the other side as well.
Yeah, no, totally. I think some of my perimenopausal symptoms were part of the reason for leaving, because that had an added level of, am I doing a good job? I can't remember things. I don't like reading papers that much. I'm hanging on by my fingernails. No, I can't actually do this job. I shouldn't be doing this job. I need to go and do something else. What else can I do? All those sorts of self-criticism, just has a huge impact until you actually know that you actually are going through perimenopause. Just acknowledging that. But I think transitioning is difficult anyway. I didn't know what to expect enough, I don't think. And I do say to a lot of people now is giving yourself that time to find out who you are before you actually leave. Don't wait till you leave and then try and find you. It's like strip back your uniform, strip back your rank, strip back everything and just go, who am I and what do I want to do, even before you've even left the service or even before you've pressed the button to leave, to be honest. And spending that time, that resettlement time, is really truly working out, who you are and what you want to achieve, and what is going to make you on the outside, because you haven't got that Kevlar on anymore. You haven't got, you don't have to be something that you're meant to be. You can be whoever. But yeah, it's a difficult one.
A lot of people I speak to, it is the overwhelming side of it. Like you see, it could literally be anything you want to be, and I think you're right. The important thing is finding what you want and who you are is the start to sort of sift through that overwhelming. Because if without that, it's all relevant, which is not helpful at that point. If everything is
No.
relevant, then nothing is helpful. And I think it's so important to figure out what, because it does surprise me, and I think it probably happened to me as well when I left, is when you sort of there is this sort of conversation that does happen, and it kind of, I think it has escalated in the last few years of, how long have you got left? It was very much a prison, how much time you got left, and everyone's looking at that exit date, and I can't wait to, not have me holidays cancelled or my weekends gone, and all these things you look forward to, and then when it comes to it, all those kind of dreams go out the window, and then all of a sudden it's, I don't know what I want. You've been dreaming of this day pretty much since
Yeah.
the end of phase
Yeah.
two of, if I had to get to that point and then I can retire and I can do this and I can, it's almost like that gets thrown out the window a little bit, I find, with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think you get sort of into a routine and a discipline in your mind that you're doing this, you've been told what to do, you're supported with this, and you've got to be here, you've got to do that, and you do get rebellious about it. But it actually means quite a lot, and probably more than you give it credit for, which is why when you come out, you kind of go, well, who's going to tell me where I need to be today? Who's going to tell me, who's going to do all this? And you kind of, because it's automatic and it's ingrained, you forget about how important it was. But then when you leave, because I went through a phase of rebelling against, I was like, right, I don't want a schedule. I don't want a battle rhythm. I don't want this. And I was rebelling against it so hard to try and find myself. And I think COVID didn't help because that made me feel like that as well. So I rebelled for quite some time until it was like, you know what, Lisa, it's okay. It's all right. You're your own boss. You can do your own schedule. You can, you need to achieve certain things, but that's because you need to do that. That's for you and your business and to help people. Don't hold on to anything that's in your subconsciousness. Don't fight it. Just don't fight it. Just let it happen. And I think once I did that, I felt a little bit more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think for me it was very similar, that I rebelled to the point I didn't want anything to do with anything military. It all went in a box. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't. It was done and dusted, and it's not until sort of the last year that I've started to creep back into that world and gone, actually, I've missed it a little bit. But I needed to do it on my terms rather than on the terms of the military. And I've spoke to quite a few people again who've had similar kind of reactions when leaving. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to talk about it. But then you do get people that still actively want to be heavily involved with it, whether it be through the reserves or doing, the covenant at work, or and it's just their way of still having sort of the toe in the water a little bit. So it's almost like a security blanket, I think, that they don't quite want to let it go.
Yeah.
But how did you? Because your business and stuff, you are dealing with military side, and you still. So how did you find, like you say, you having that rebellion, but at the same time you were still having that contact with it. Yeah.
Conflict. Yeah. Definite conflict in my own head. But I think because of COVID, it allowed me time to try to analyse some of the issues or concerns with the veterinary population in particular. I mean, my business supports military families, whether you're serving, transitioning, spouse of, kids of, whatever. But I did a lot of research, and a lot of the things that were cropping up were, you do have that amount of people that don't want to associate with the military, so they won't even tick the box to say they're a veteran or whatever. So the picture of what the veterans' requirements are is very blurred. And I don't think we're any closer to actually knowing what the need is for veterans. You know, where are they? I think we understand a little bit more about where they are, where people
Yeah.
live, but not about what they need. So certainly from my perspective, we support with accommodation and housing, but I don't know where specifically that need is in order to put the resources in the right places. And I've spoken to a lot of the charities, and they find the same issue is you're firefighting it all the time. You know, one minute the problem could be over in this city, and the next minute it could be in this city. With a lot of the veterans that are having problems, they don't want to associate with being military a lot of the time. And then we go and call the support mechanisms op courage and op this and op that, and they want to disassociate with that kind of language, so they don't come forward. Certainly a lot of the veterans that I've spoken to just don't want to associate with it, so they don't get in touch with op courage, or they don't want to make contact with those numbers because they just don't want to associate with it, because they don't want to be judged. They don't, they're proud people who don't want to be seen as if they're going for charity, as it were. So there's a whole layer complexity to any issues that veterans have. I don't know what the answers are. I don't think anyone will really know the answers. I think we put things in place to try and help. But
And I think as well, a lot of veterans kind of think, especially people I've spoken to, that are just like, well, my problem's not big enough. I'm not, I'm not ill enough or
yeah,
broken enough to receive. I think there's a real mental block with a lot of it.
yeah,
It's things like PTSD and depression, anxiety. I never went out the gate at all. So why have I got issues? I've seen people have a lot worse, and that's what it needs to be helped for. But the reality is we're all
yeah.
different, and our brains and bodies all work differently. And if you can't lead any kind of quality of life, then you need to ask for the help to get back to the quality of life that you should be leaving and you should be entitled to. You gave so much time and effort and missed out on so much. And it frustrates me when people come out the other side and they're miserable. And it's like you've got another 20, 30 years of your life to enjoy. Don't let it drag that bit of your life down, that chapter down. You can't spend that time being miserable on this side of the fence. And it's heartbreaking.
Sometimes the narrative of what a veteran is can sometimes be, well, you're a veteran now, therefore you must be homeless, or you must be an older man, or you must be, and some people leave and they feel like they should have that narrative because that's what they are. Instead of writing their own story and going, well, I'm not going to become part of that narrative. I want this other successful narrative that we don't talk about enough. I don't think we don't champion it that often, but we need to be able to. I mean, I'm a big believer in value and purpose, and when people lose their value and purpose, that's when problems begin. So it's about finding where that value and purpose is in any way that you possibly can and not losing it. So even down to smiling at somebody down the street, get a smile back and using that as a bit of a positivity. It's easier said than done. I absolutely understand that. But it's, helping other people isn't just about giving them, like from my business, isn't just about giving accommodation. It's more than that. It's making sure that people do have all the other holistic support that people need. Just giving people homes isn't going to help the homeless at all. I'm very aware of that. You've got to do all the other added extras and helping them find value and purpose themselves. But yeah, the narrative I think needs to help a little bit more. And yeah, I don't know who needs to champion the positive narrative or help with the values and purposes of when people leave. I don't know whether that's the transition side of it. I mean, I only found out that there was a course you could do in transition for setting up your own business just by chance, really. It was, you were told you have to go and do the mainstream CTP. And then I was told about this other one. And when I asked about it, it was like, you can either do this or do that. And I thought, well, I'll do the business one, please. But it wasn't the initial option. The initial option was the mainstream CTP transitioning.
Yeah, and I think it kind of falls down at that point when it's very practical. It's very right. Here's your CV. Here's LinkedIn. You need to get a job. It's very practical, and you can do KPIs off that, and we can tick boxes and tick boxes. And but like you say, it's very holistic. There's a whole piece around it that's just kind of ignored and put to one side. Also, like you say, there's things that aren't really championed, and I think especially in the veteran community, there's a lot of people with their own businesses because that's a form of rebellion. I can't have people tell me what to do anymore, so I'm going to do it myself. And the amount of people out there that have really successful businesses, but like you say, that run your own business thing is like we do have this, but it's something in my mind that should be pushed to the forefront of, because a lot of people, and you'll be surprised, like there's clothing lines, people that have property management businesses, people that do the PT side of things, do not promotional talking but motivational speaking, and there's all these like really, really, really successful veterans on the other side. I mean, you've only got to look at most of the SES programs and all the rest of it, the drive that people have, but it's almost like it's not, like you say, it's not championed enough that this is a possibility now. You could run your own business and be really good at it, because guess what, you're used to having three different hats on at the same time, and then, oh no, this problem's now happened, I'm now going to have to deal with that. Oh, what do you mean I've got to write the policy for it? What? Now I've got to do that as well. And you know I think we let ourselves, I think we forget, we always put ourselves in that, well, that's just the job, that's what we did, but you apply so many
Yeah, I think there's
skills.
a huge amount. And I don't think we champion ourselves enough to go. We have this fear. Like, however long people serve, you never write a CV, so you don't know what it really is or what it should say. And yes, it's great to be taught how to do a CV, but why not blend the two situations? Because I think even considering being a business owner helps with you being a part of a team in a company anyway. And you naturally gravitate to what it is that you want to do, and where your skills are. But just giving people the freedom of choice to go, you know what, you've got skills here. You could use those skills in so many different ways. And people just really underestimate, probably because you can't define your military role on the outside. Well, you absolutely can. And there's lots of people out there to support military people doing that, but there's just so many things that people have the skills for. I can't wait to the moment that I can broaden our business and take on. I'll certainly be looking at military people to take it on, because our values and ethos very much fit alongside people that are coming out of service, because we support people that are in service and out service. So to have that understanding is gold dust,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, especially to go through it and be on this side of it, it's just another layer of, I think a lot of veterans can bond over. It's just something that's not really spoken about very much because, like you say earlier, like people don't want to feel like a failure. You want to come out and look really successful, but the reality is behind all of those successes is going to be some form of struggle or other that people haven't or didn't quite realize or just didn't anticipate, or completely hit them out of the blue. And I've had conversations with a lot of people that I've known through my career that have been way up the scale in terms of their career and have gone, well, yeah, my leaving wasn't that great, but I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet. And it's like it happens at
Hmm.
all levels. So, and I'm trying to sort of myth bust this kind of, it's not pretty, like social media pretty that everyone puts out there. There is a form of conversation that can happen behind closed doors, that you can find that similar ground with people. To be fair, it is the majority. It's a good 95%, I say, that people haven't had great leaving experiences. It's a very small percent that have had a good experience, and it only because they set themselves up when they were like a corporal with their eye on the door already. They lined their ducks up for years and then just quietly
Yeah.
left out the door and transitioned straight into the job that they've had their eye on since, they were a call. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I think that frustrates me with, yes, you're in the military, but I think there needs to be a change in the military where that conversation happens very early with SJARs and, okay, so you've done this course. What can you do to translate it to a civilian course? How can we support you in that? As part of the SJAR. And you see, I'm starting to see now, I don't know if you've seen, like, a lot of military people are now setting up their own businesses, whether it be online PT and things like that. And I've had mixed reviews from different areas of the military that, oh, my training program's really supportive, and others not so much. And it's like this individual's looking to leave and do this, but it's heavily discouraged by certain areas, but not all, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because there is a shortage of military people. There's gaps everywhere, as we all know. You kind of take, if you're serving, you might take a selfish approach and go, well, if they leave, that means I've got to do more work. Or we're supposed to be keeping people in because there's lots of jobs that we need filling and things like that. And if more people leave, then and then sometimes there might be a bit of jealousy. Well, I want to leave, but they've actually got the balls to go ahead and do it. I'm not happy with that. So I think the mindset of those people is that don't want people to leave is probably personal to them. But it is a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Yeah, it's hard to put myself back in those shoes as to how I would feel
Yeah.
about it, knowing that there's such a shortage in the military. It's kind of, well, why aren't you then turning it around and going, well, how can I keep people in? Or if people are leaving, why not say, look, have you thought about reserve service? Have you thought about PTVR? Have you thought about voluntary ex-regular reserve? Have you thought about all these other things that you could potentially go and do, which means you go out there and get all these skills and then come back in and help those skills and bring them back into service. But if people aren't leaving well, they're not going to want to go and do those sorts of things. And if they don't leave well, they're not going to be a great recruitment tool for you. So if 95% of the people leaving are not leaving with a good experience, that's your massive recruitment tool. Just shot yourself in the foot. You kind of go, allow people to leave well, then they will want to then say to other people, it was brilliant experience, it was my time to go, I was ready to go, blah, but I would highly recommend it. I mean, that's what you want. And you also want people, 5-10 years down the line going, oh, I'll join back up, or I'll do a bit of reserve service, or I'll, you know, do whatever I need to. But if people don't leave well, then that's the last thing they're going to be thinking
I
about.
want the Trustpilot reviews, and at the
Yeah.
moment they're not doing well, on those reviews. And you're absolutely right. You want the stories that come out that, yeah, I did 15 years, I managed to do these tours and these jobs and these postings, and I got qualified. They supported me through these qualifications, which has now set me up. And leaving, it was, I had really good support. It was really helpful. You know what? I would recommend it to anyone who, might not want to do the uni route, want to work, travel a bit, and then figure out what they want to do after that, and have those stories rather than, don't, you're not allowed to do those courses, we're not supporting you in that. And I think you're right in the sense that I think people are trying to make people stay, but by doing it the way they're doing it, they're actually pushing people out the door even faster, um, rather than supporting those people in those careers, you know. And it's like a lot of people say, everyone leaves eventually. Keeping them for now, but they're going to go eventually, whether it's 10 years, 15, 22, 24, 25. They're going to go eventually. And then, like you say, they're the reviews of people of, if you've not left at the end of 24 years and, thought, oh my God, that's how we left. And like you say, it's
Yeah.
that bitter taste then of, yeah, I had 24 great years, but whew, that was a bit cold on the way out.
Well, that's the lasting
Yeah,
memory, isn't it? That's your lasting, all those other memories, the fun memories, are yours and yours alone because you were there. Apart from obviously your mates and your colleagues that were there with you, and only you know what went on. But that last little bit when you leave is the bit that people ask you about. They'll ask, how was your career? But you just suddenly go, well, my last memory was how bad it was when I left. So that's your first story. It's not a great
yeah.
pitch.
And what's really interesting is I got talking to a group where there'd been medical discharge, and the common theme was, I didn't get my top table dinner. That didn't happen. And it really, you could see it in people, the sting of that. It stayed with them even now, years after leaving. And it's the biggest comment that I heard was, I didn't get that. And I'd seen so many, which is why I was so glad,
Mm,
Amy, a friend of ours, basically did her own. And it's sad that she had to do that. But at the same time, I'm really glad she did, because I think it is a very important part of that departure. And I
mm,
think, like, medical discharge and things like that, or, through COVID, like you say, there's a lot of people that have left through those channels that are just sat in this kind of limbo. And there's that
mm.
taste of, I didn't get what I thought was I should have had at the end of that final goodbye and that final, like, celebration more than anything.
Yeah,
And I think it's undervalued by quite a lot of people that are probably quite high up. That kind of, I think a lot of people look at it, well, it's just a dinner. What's your problem? Like? And I think there probably will be people that their minds will be blown by it, absolutely blown.
yeah. It's the reflection, isn't it? It's that reflection on your successes and people taking the banter out of you and stuff like that. That you just kind of go, yeah, that was the service. And for people medically discharged, I can't even begin to imagine how they feel about it. It's you know that cutting short of something that you have no control over. I can only imagine, and I don't know why it can't, for whatever reason. I don't know why the military can't do that for them in some way, shape, or form. But maybe they rely on colleagues and friends doing it. I don't know. There's a complexity around medical
Yeah,
discharge, isn't there, that probably needs people that are expert in that area and have actually gone through it to talk about it a bit more of what
yeah,
can be done.
yeah. I think we're in agreement in the sense of, leaving is complex. There's so many layers
Yeah,
to it, and that's the difficulty with it, because everyone's different, everyone's story is different, everyone's circumstances are different. There is no one hat fits all, and they're trying desperately to make one hat fit all, which is, here's a CV, here's LinkedIn. But I think we're at
yeah,
a point now that it's really not working. The sad part of it is, with the amount of people that are leaving, it's failing even more. It's just not
yeah.
getting any
There's
better.
not enough resources.
Yeah, we're not learning from what we're seeing, in terms of the volumes of people that are leaving. We're not learning. We're still trying to make the hat fit the same
Yeah,
circumstances.
it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't just suddenly go, right, stop,
Yeah.
everybody leaving for a
So we
year
can fix it.
whilst we sort out the fixes that we need to do, so that and then you can
Yeah,
all go.
yeah.
But phased
Leaving.
leaving.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is difficult. I think the thing is, you want to see change, and I'm sure they are changing. Like you went through resettlement 2019, so it is such a long time ago. I don't know how it is now. It could have changed completely. So I suspect it hasn't, given the people that I speak to recently, but I don't know.
we'll keep everything crossed, and it might change. Hopefully.
Maybe they'll listen to the podcast
Yeah,
and go, oh, that's a great.
yeah.
We'll do
Start
that.
start putting a QR code on every desk. Just listen to other people's, and I think that's the main reason I started this. It's getting people to talk about their experiences and help people realize that, everyone is different, but everyone has a struggle with it, and that's the commonality, is it's difficult, but it's quite overwhelming, I think, as well, with the amount of help that could be in, depending on your circumstances. Like you say, if they don't want to associate with it, then that rules out a lot of the help because of how it's kind of marketed and put out there. And it is really, really complex, a really complex subject. Um, but
Mm.
in terms of like your business and what you're doing and where you are helping, especially, like you say, people that are still serving and the veterans that are out the other side, do you feel like you've kind of almost like plugged a little bit of a gap of help that was really, really required with the business? Like a little plug in a big
Image.
dam of a crack, but
Yeah, it's difficult. There's so much complexity in the housing world that if you, I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything like that. Well, maybe I do. It's really difficult because if you're trying to support a particular group of people and you want to do that by doing it in a way that supports them, lowering the rents, having good quality homes, doing all those sorts of things, it's very, very difficult to support people that are in those circumstances. So you're not supported in terms of mortgage lenders see it as a risk if you want to support people that are on universal credit or whatever circumstances. Insurances are higher than the general private rental sector. So all the additional costs are actually far more than you would expect. So to try and reduce rents below market rent is nigh on impossible in order to keep your operational costs going. So there needs to be some way of having a sector separated from the private rental sector that gives a government-backed mortgage that's at a lower rate. Why wouldn't it be? If you can guarantee that you're going to get universal credit rental for that property, insurances that cover, it's just a normal person living in a normal house. It's not, spectacular or anything. It's, and those sorts of things. There should be, incentives around to be able to support people where you could just genuinely go, you know what, I'm going to keep the rents as low as I possibly can because the mortgage rate hasn't gone up. The insurance rate hasn't gone up. The licenses haven't gone up. The trying to get your house to an EPC level hasn't gone up. All the other additional costs haven't all gone up, which enables you to keep the rental costs low. But it's getting harder and harder, I have to say. So the problem is going to get bigger and
yeah,
bigger. And it's not just veterans that are in that situation. There's lots of target audiences that are in that sort of similar situation. But, the answers aren't hammering landlords with extra licenses and extra legislation, because at the end of the day they're going to leave the sector and it's going to cause a big problem, and then the rents are going to go up, and so we begin the cycle again. And I'm trying to simplify it. It's not as simple as that, but it feels that like something needs to be
yeah,
simple. But until that point in time, I think there'll always be a problem. There's a massive problem with the housing sector in terms of veterans that are homeless. There's a whole heap of people that are borderline homeless and that can't get on the rental market for loads of reasons. So it is complex. So that's why I say it's a little, what we've done so far is a small piece in trying to help. But there's lots of businesses and charities out there that are trying to help. Charities can only help certain people. Businesses have to obviously have operational profits and things like that. You can put them back into the business, and that helps that way, but then you get hammered by lots of other things. So any of that profit just disappears. So you kind of go, should we be a charity or should we be a business? So lots of different considerations. But at the end of the day, you just want to help people.
yeah. And it always feels a bit sort of politicians and what have you. People will bang the drum of homeless veterans. They need the help, but then there's a way and a mean, but they're not doing it. Like you say, the price is escalating, 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 and then all that's going to do is have more people in the same boat that are on the street, and there's no like halfway house with it, which I think needs to happen. There needs to be that support of halfway house, because a lot of people, they won't even have a mortgage for their entire career, and then try and get one as they leave, and then suddenly realise they can't get one that they thought they could get, because they didn't realise, or that CCJ will affect it, or that payday loan that I had might have, have impacts on what's happening. Where do we relocate to? Where do we buy? I didn't realise the house prices were going to be to that extent, and then all of a sudden it's crashing at the same time to try and get somewhere to live. There's just it's a lot, and then you've got people who've got young families as well, spouses that have moved around the country with you, so I've done jobs where they can. It might not be that they've been able to have the luxury of a remote job that has been secure that whole time, so they've hopped about as well, which also then almost goes against you as well when it comes to mortgages and sort of getting that settled feeling at the other side, which is the frustrating thing. It really it's one of my biggest things of, they provide housing the whole time you're in, and then a surprise when people leave that they don't know what to do.
Well, there is meant to be, and I only found it out as I left, which I found really surprising, is there's a housing association within the service. I can't remember the abbreviation for it now. It's probably changed quite a bit, but it's supposed to be there for that very reason, that they are there to support you whilst you're in service towards the end of you leaving, to then give you that advice. I'm not sure it's very well advertised, and I'm not sure it's very well supporting, because I was like, well, I'm in housing and I'm just about to leave and I'm setting up a property business. Why have I only just... And you can't get hold of them. I couldn't get hold of them as I was leaving either. So it was all a bit odd to have that organisation that doesn't necessarily... It came across to me like they weren't really doing an awful lot. You can see why businesses set themselves up to go, well, if you're not doing anything, then I'm just going to get in there and get stuck in, because there's an absolute need there. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of great things going on for the veteran community in the housing world. So there's veterans villages all over the place, setting up, but again, it's like, where is the need and what services do they need, and just ensuring that the whole package is there, that they're not just giving housing for the sake of giving housing because that's where we feel like there's a need. So the really top charities are doing a lot of work in the background just to make sure that they've got the right houses in the right place with the right support network, and even giving jobs, and a proper veterans village where they're just not living, they're just existing. They're actually having employment. They've got the mental health support. They've got everything that they possibly need, and then they feel valued and they've got purpose. I do waffle, don't I?
No, you don't. You don't at all. No, you've been great, Lisa. And I think it's a really good insight into especially like the housing side of it. And yeah, there is a gap, and I think it's important to highlight the gaps, because I think a lot of people do feel lost and feel like, what do I do? And there's nothing there, and that's a normal feeling because there is nothing there. It's not anything you've done wrong. It's just the situation you're in, and you might have to sort of have a look around and see what other help there is, because the system isn't built for it. So it's not a them problem, it's the system problem. I think I've not heard before about, like you were saying before, about the data and people just not ticking the boxes. And I think if you can do anything when those surveys happen or whatever it may be, tick the box, even just to help someone else get the help, even if you don't think you need it, even if it really probably leaves a sour taste in your mouth to tick it, but that data is going to help people like you and the charities, and figure out how to best resource things, rather than trying to find where it needs to go, and it realizing it's not helping half the people it needs to help because it needs to be 40 miles the other way, which is difficult, and it's not something I'd heard before. So yes, I'd very much encourage people to tick the box, help the data.
Box.
We can't see you, we don't know where you are, but no, you've been fab, Lisa, and thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I'll put your business details on the description. Anyone who wants to come and find and help and ask for any kind of like direction or whatever, they can find you out there in the world wide web.
Fabulous.
That's fab. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thanks, Katie.